Hello. I'm becoming increasingly perplexed by the ideological situation of today. Occasionally, people will comment on my videos that they'll complain that the Stefan Molyneux problem in a nutshell is not a nutshell. They'll complain that it's too long. They'll complain that this video here is too long. This is too long. This is why this video is a shorter one. And my defense to that is usually, well, the reason it's long is because I can't explain everything quickly. There's too many topics to cover. There's too many elements, too many variables to discuss. It's too complex, It's not an easy subject. Some people try to pander this all down and act like it's all really simple. That's what Molyneux did. That's what all the sort of journalistic, philosophical, semi-philosophical YouTubers do. I'm the only one who's like, no, it's not easy. It's not simple. Stop trying to make it simple. It's never going to be simple. Unless you already sort of understand. But part of this was simply an excuse. Part of this was that, me saying it's not simple really doesn't get the point across of why it takes so long. But part of this is really my fault, is what I'm trying to say. Part of it is my fault that it takes so long for me to cover a topic. Part of it is that I'm not very organized, and I don't have all of these ideas organized. But there's an even bigger, obviously an element of what I was saying is true, is that it does, it is in fact not simple at all. But the reason why it's not simple, the reason why it's not easy to explain all, my whole perspective and all these ideas is because, where we're coming from is from an entirely different location. What I would say is an entirely different school of thought. Most people, or maybe not most people, but different people come from different schools of thought, essentially. And unless you're coming from the same school of thought, if you're coming from the same school of thought, you will reach a consensus very quickly. You will understand what the other person's trying to say almost immediately. If it's a different school of thought, you're going to run into a whole bunch of problems. So what's happening here, really what's happening here, is that I am coming at all these issues with an entirely different school of thought than what most people are coming at it from. And the challenge then is to really agree on the school of thought we ought to be coming from. Because if we don't agree on that, then we won't agree on the issues. We won't agree on the particulars. We won't agree on the specifics. So, but there's more to say about this particular school of thought. A lot of what I believe in stems from sort of just epistemological facts about the world, about objectivity and subjectivity and how and what human thinking even is. Within the epistemology of this school of thought is everything is sort of analytical. Everything is measurable. Everything can be logically described and determined, and to some degree of accuracy, obviously, not to perfect accuracy, but everything is in principle analytical and measurable, and we know this a priori. And if everything is measurable, every perspective, even if it's even people with their own unique perspectives, those perspectives can still be measured. And basically everything is objective in that sense. Subjectivity does not exist in the same sense that it would exist it does not exist in the same sense that it exists in the subjective theory of value. It does not exist in the same sense that it exists among subjectivists. It doesn't exist or work in that same way in pretty much any group of people that I've seen, which is why I'm becoming increasingly suspicious that what I'm actually working with here is an entirely new school of thought. The sheer lack of people that I've been able to sort of, there's not that many people that can sort of see where this is coming from, and outside of like academic circles in philosophy, you're not really going to find them. And even there, I've had like I've had conversations with like academics in philosophy, and even they are still, sort of skeptical of the whole hard determinism thing. They're all still attached to the whole compatibilist idea, and I mean, I wouldn't even say that I'm not a compatibilist. I would just say that compatibilism is you have to try and imagine what the world would be like if everything is overdetermined before we, you have to start from hard determinism and build your way up. And if you can get compatibilism out of that, then that's fine. But don't start assuming compatibilism, because what that sort of shows is that you're still trying to hold on to the whole free will thing. Whatever, I'm rambling, and this, honestly, I don't really have much of a point to say, but what I'm realizing is that I'm dealing... The reason it's taking me so long to explain things is because I'm really not... I'm not working with the same assumptions. I'm not working with the same set of axioms. It's like I have my own science over here that I'm trying to explain. And honestly, it's something that won't really be completely clear to people until it's all written down in a book somewhere. It's like Immanuel, it's like Kant or something. A Critique of Pure Reason, you don't really understand his whole philosophy, and how it all goes together until you read this massive tome that sort of explains all the details, and then you can sort of understand where that person is coming from. So what I'm saying is that to some of you, or to some people, what I'm trying to really push forward isn't going to become clear until you can read out everything in a book. And I am not... The thing about this book is that I am not actually writing this book. I'm not currently writing it, and I probably won't be writing it for a long time, because the thing with books is that there's still a lot of stuff that I have to learn. There's still a lot of polishing I have to do of these ideas. Right now, it's all just sitting in my head, and it's relatively unpolished. With books, you have to polish it. You have to... And there's just facts that I don't know. There's things about epistemology that I don't know. There's things about logic that I don't know. There's things about math that I don't know. Relevant things. The crux of it is all there. I'm sure of that. But the details might not be there. And the details are also important, because people will nitpick the details when they don't like your ideology. They'll nitpick the details rather than the central point of it, even if they agree to that point. It's kind of a weird thing. It's the whole bottom-up versus top-down philosophy thing again. They don't really... The central theorem doesn't matter so much as the details matter to other people. To me, it's the opposite. The central theorem is the deep truth is more important than the particulars. So yeah. And the reason I'm not writing this book is because, honestly, it's going to take a long time to write, and I have other things that I'm working on at the moment. I have plenty of other ideas and things that I would much rather be writing and working on. So, honestly, this whole school of thought, I don't even know what to call it, but this school of thought is... Primarily, its only recorded form right now is through these videos, and that's how it's going to be for a little while, And yeah, there's not really much else I can say about it, about that. I have to reference my own videos to sort of explain my point, or have a really long conversation with someone. But I guess the point here in general is to sort of just inform people that, where I'm coming from is not where... It's probably not where you think I'm... It's not where most people come from. It's probably not where you're coming from. It's probably not where most people come from. And the reason for it is... Yeah, that's just it. That you don't necessarily know where I'm coming from and what the whole the central idea within this is. Now, of course, this school of thought, the one I'm employing, isn't exactly new. It's not exactly that different from necessarily other schools of thought. There's plenty of similarities. There's plenty of other ideas that I borrow, and that always happens. Every school of thought just borrows from other schools of thought. That happens all the time. But it is definitely unique, is my point. It's completely unique. Because if it wasn't unique, I would have a much harder time. I would have had a much easier time finding, people. I would have a much easier time getting people to agree with it, or finding people that agree with it, right? And I haven't really found that many. So, just everything seems to point to this idea that it's a completely new school of thought. And so, the reason these things take a long time is precisely because this new school of thought hasn't really been developed yet. It hasn't really been, not much has been written on it, not much has been explained. It's all just sort of here in my head, and there's some other ideas that tangentially relate to it, and that's about it. Yeah, that's basically it. And then the only thing I have to sort of finish with is that the central... Every argument that I see happening on the internet is a complete waste of time, because what these people disagree on is epistemology. What they disagree on is the fundamental truths of truth and knowledge. That's what they don't agree on. They don't agree on when something is true. They don't agree on when you know something. They don't agree on when something is up for moral debate and when it's not. They don't agree on these fundamentals. And they're not arguing about that. They're arguing about the particular politics of today. Libertarianism or socialism, or, feminism or the other thing. So, I mean, you can't even begin to discuss that stuff until you've agreed on this level, right? So, what I'm saying is any discussion that I would have with one of these people, and fortunately the only people I've really had a discussion with thus far are Mike, and even he seems to agree, at least somewhat, understand where I'm coming from. But it's why I always sort of offer to any commenter that's like, go talk to me on Google Plus, because we're stuck up here. We have to go deeper. We always have to go deeper. Philosophy is about depth first and foremost. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So yeah, that's what I want to say. It's a whole epistemological debate. Right? If you're not going to agree on the epistemology, you're just going to bounce back and forth from one ideology to the next. Right now, feminism is this whole big thing, but then some other time it's not going to be a big thing. It's going to cycle back and forth. There's going to be one culture, and then it creates a counterculture, and then creates another counterculture, and we're going to do this wavy thing back and forth, with until people wise up and realize why they're actually disagreeing on things in the first place, right? The cultural movements are just, those things are entirely circumstantial. Those things are not, there's no consistent reason why people are moving from one camp to the other, and why feminism used to be a good thing, now it's like kind of a bad thing, So, yeah, just the whole debate is much too shallow, if you ask me, and yeah. That's pretty much it. I'm going to be pushing forward to this whole epistemology debate pretty much everywhere I go. And it's hard because a lot of people probably assume epistemology is like, people, that type of highly theoretical, highly philosophical stuff. A lot of people just assume that that's just like your opinion, Anyone starts talking about that, it's like, oh, that's just his opinion on philosophy, right? And it's not taken seriously by a lot of people, but it should be, because that's really where the disagreement is. He has his opinion and you have yours, and it's because you two have this differing opinion that you don't agree on the politics of today. It's this lack of self-awareness on what the genesis of ideas is. If you agreed on these so-called matters of philosophical opinion, you would agree on everything else. So they're not merely opinions. They are the the backbone upon which the entire framework, your entire framework of knowledge and truth is built. So, excuse me for trying to make, what seems like an opinion be an active part of the debate. That's all I have to say, I suppose. And to anyone's dismay, the school of thought that this is, and I haven't come up with a name for it really, but it won't become a sort. It will take time for it to become a developed thing, and at least it's partially developed by other people, but whatever. That's pretty much it. Just a quick little video informing, I guess, on what my thoughts were as of today. It's more of like an update video. I don't even know what category to put this in. Anyway, so long and goodbye. Cheers. Right? Cheers, yeah.